I think it was Andy Edwards, you know Andy? It's like he was on Beato. He's like a English commentator on music.
Andy Edwards. Never heard of him.
Well, here we are for another video. I've been doing a lot of really quality stuff recently on the channel. Bringing in musicians, I've had Danny Sapko in, we're doing tribute to the Stranglers, and I've had like the actual drummer from the Stranglers coming in giving excellent tips for professional musicians, you know. As I film this, those videos haven't come out yet, but I know the views won't be that great. You know why? Because we need a top 10, don't we? We need a top 10. There's no two ways about it. So, just walking up the stairs after going to the toilet, I thought I need a top 10. So I've quickly come up with a top 10 here. Let's see how much utility and wisdom is contained in this one, shall we? But you love them. Don't you lot love them, don't you? So I'm giving you what you want. The 10 new members. Nah, that's no good, is it? See, I'm trying to show you that this one hasn't been that thought out, really. Some of my videos are thought out for months, but not the ones that everybody wants to watch, you know. So you might be able to come up with some better examples than me, because this isn't ranked. This is just the 10 I came up with. Although they are ranked, they're ranked in the order I thought of them, or the reverse order that I thought of them. Now, some of you new to this channel will be saying this is a very strange YouTube technique, this sort of not getting to the point. You shouldn't do that on YouTube. On YouTube, you need to get to the point straight away, or people don't like it. You've got to tell them what you're going to do, and then you've got to deliver that, and then they're happy. Once they get what they want, then they're like putty in your hands, the audience are putty in your hands. But I haven't done that. Let's try as a title, 10 new members that ruined these bands. Does that sound right? 10 new members that ruined these bands? Does that sound like it's going to work? You know, thumbnail, picture of somebody that people don't like. They know that when they came in, they ruined that band. A couple of people like that, perhaps. And then on the thumbnail, I have, they ruined these bands. Like I'm really angry about it, you know, like some sort of, you know, McCarthy witch hunt. Where are these musicians that ruined these bands? They ruined these bands. Ruined they were. All right, so I better get into this one. You can see I haven't got full conviction on this, you see. Is it my lot, after a lifetime sacrificing my soul, my family life, for music, that it comes to this, that I pay my mortgage by basically running various bands and musicians down for your entertainment? Is that right, Andy, that you should do such a thing? There'll be people complaining about it in the comments, I know that. And yet they will be ones that probably don't watch the other videos. Now, looking at this list, it does raise quite interesting questions for each band considered. And it does mark a certain change of fortunes for many of these bands. All the bands on this list I absolutely love, but there is a point, and in some case 40 years ago, although the band kept going, I lost interest completely. And the question is that down to somebody new coming into the band's sort of orbit and changing things and making it all worse, and most importantly, them losing the very essence of who they are? Of course, Led Zeppelin, John Bonham, John Paul Jones, Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, it never changed, did it? That was Led Zeppelin. And as soon as John was gone, The band turned around and says, we're not Led Zeppelin without that person. They are very wise to do that. And other bands that have had a very consistent lineup over decades, for example, Rush, still, after Signals, I have very little interest in what they do. Is that me? Right, and in that case, did something change? Well, we'll have to find out. Although, I haven't put them on the list, have I? I thought I'd put them on the list. I thought I'd put Rush on the list. How can you put Rush on the list? Well, let's use Rush as an example.
Yes! Yes! Oh no!
I love Rush. I love the first album with John Rutsey on it. And I love all the albums up to Signals. And when I say I love them, I really love them. Any of those albums, if I stuck them on in the car, it would hit me like one of these classic albums. There's a few albums where you go, oh, I just love this. It's been with me since day one. All of those albums, even Caress of Steel, all incredible albums. Signals is an incredible album. It's absolutely amazing. I thought it wasn't. Right, because the worries I had when I was 14 in 1982 when Signals came on, I thought, well, there's a lot of keyboards on here, they seem to be writing pop songs. Right, I was wrong. Rush didn't change with Signals. Rush went rubbish with Grace Under Pressure. Now, there's those people out there that think that Grace Under Pressure is one of their greatest albums, but I don't. Now, you would say to me, Andy, this doesn't fit into your list, does it? Because nobody changed. They didn't lose anybody, but they did. All the way up to Signals on their voyage through Prog Wonder, right? They had Terry Brown. Terry Brown was like a fourth member to that band. Now, Geddy Lee was on Rick Beato. Actually, Alex Lifeson was on because he crashes the interview halfway through. But the point is, when Geddy Lee starts talking about Terry Brown was very involved in the arrangements. And it's the arrangements that we love. It's the arrangements that we love. Now, when Terry Brown goes, on Grace Under Pressure, they can't really find a producer. They get a guy to just, he basically sounds like he's recording it, he's manning the helm, you know, he's just in there pressing the record off and on and making sure everything's going out without distorting. A guy called Paul Henderson, I believe his name is. And so they really tried to produce themselves. They haven't got Terry Brown. Now, there's another aspect of Rush. Rush, what makes Rush special is they're a prog band, but they always rock. They're always really heavy. They've always got the riffs. But within that riffage, they have some sort of stoner rock thing going on, like Black Sabbath. And we now know that's because they were stoners. And I've seen a photograph of Terry Brown. Have you seen him? He looks like a bit of a stoner too. So I wonder whether, you know, they had some sort of parties going on with these albums, which is why they have a certain sound. And once that went, Rush were no more without that magic ingredient. Now, I was going to have a look to see if Terry Brown did come back at any point and produce any of the later albums, and to see if those are better albums, but I couldn't be asked. But there we have an example. So you can widen it out and say, well, somebody else comes into the picture here and ruins it. And that is what's happening at number 10 on this list. It's not a band member being added, but somebody definitely comes along and ruins this band. Right, and this is one of my favourite bands, Santana. Santana, I love the first album, which is called Santana. I love the second album, Abraxas. I love the third album, Santana 3. Then they go in their sort of electric post-British brew, you know, trippy jazz thing with Caravanserai, Welcome, Borboleta, Lotus. These are just masterpieces. Then they go into their disco period with Amigos, Festival, Marathon, Inner Secrets, Z-Bop. See, I know most of Shango. Now, as a kid, being a massive Santana fan, I bought everything up to Shango. So I've got a bit of a cold today, which is probably affecting my performance and make me a bit cynical. You've got cynical Andy today, and you just have to put up with him. No, Shango was where I thought, nah, I'm jumping ship now. I've had enough. Don't want to know. And they've turned into something else. And it wasn't a lineup change. It's got nothing to do with the members, all right? I tell you what it's got to do with. It's got to do with Carlos himself. Carlos is one of my favourite guitar players. And when he plays on those early albums I love, he explodes out of the speakers. It's quite incredible. He is one of the few guitarists that is close to Hendrix in that sort of intensity of performance. His soul is in every single note. Okay? On the first few albums, I believe he was playing a Gibson XG, a classic thick distorted sound, a very fast neck. But then he moves to the Yamaha SG. The Yamaha SG is a guitar which doesn't get the credit it should. My friend Shannon Hanspel, he also plays a Yamaha SG. And with the entrance of the Yamaha SG, his sound becomes otherworldly. And he's played on that on the track Europa off Amigos, one of the greatest guitar solos ever made by any human being in the history of the planet. You know it's true. Later on, around about Inner Secrets, he swaps to a Fender Strat. I remember, we know the track Maria Caracoles, that one, he's burning on Strat still. So this, what I'm saying is Santana's soul of the music comes through. But then, at some point, he does a deal with Paul Reed Smith. Who's Paul Reed Smith, I hear you ask? He was a guitar builder, and now he's got his company, which makes bespoke, you know, sort of guitars. Paul Reed Smith's PRS. I don't like them. They sound plasticky. The necks feel not very nice. I think the craftsmanship is very good. They're very solid. But I don't like the sound. I really don't like the sound of them. I've had friends who play normal guitar, and then because these guitars were worth money, people go, oh, I really want a Paul Reed Smith. I'm going to have a Paul Reed Smith. And they go and get one, and then when you hear them, it just sort of, it sucks the soul out of you. Now, it could be that Paul Reed Smith is actually Satan, he's the devil, and he's actually able to capture people's souls through his horrible guitar he makes. Now, I know I'm saying something very contentious here. I would like to know, because normally on this channel we talk about music. I don't get into gear that much. In fact, you know, I haven't really got into gear that much, have I? I'm not much of a gearhead, but there's certain pieces of gear I absolutely love, and there's certain pieces of gear I absolutely hate. And Paul Reed Smith guitars are in the hate. You know, they're not a classic sound, and they're not a modern, like, well, you know, futuristic sound, and you can do things, I don't know, like say, a Steinberger guitar, you know, it's got no head, and it's, oh, that's clever, we got no head and all that bit. No, I think that Paul Reed Smith ruined Santana. And once Santana picked one up, he never sounded any good ever again, and all the Santana albums after that aren't worth listening to. All right? Now, of course, we know that Carlos Santana has a direct line to God. He's a very spiritual man. And, or is it God? Because I have to admit that Santana, after a lifetime making incredible music, then going rubbish, playing Paul Reed Smith, he seems to know what he's doing. He goes, no, I'm going to make the most successful album in the history of mankind. And he goes out and does that Supernatural album, and suddenly Santana's the biggest thing in the world. And now he and his children will never have to work again because the amount of money. He's done a deal with the devil, that bloke, I tell you. Or maybe it's a deal with God like Kate Bush talks of, you know. But it doesn't excuse the fact that he's playing a Paul Reed Smith. Carlos, take it from me. Go and dig out your Yamaha SG. Go back to that sound. That's what we want from you. Not that buzzy wasp in a jar sound that you get out of the bloody Paul Reed Smith. Oh, sounds. You know, sometimes it's nice for guitarists to come out and utilise the guitar as a sort of synthesizer instrument and create all these different weird sounds, you know, and going all over the place. And it's all, you know, it's all, ooh, that's weird. Oh, Hendrix was the first to do this, wasn't he? You know, or probably Les Paul, actually. The guitar is a sort of a synthesizer of sounds. It's all quite good. But sometimes you just want a guitar to sound like a guitar, don't you? You know what I'm saying? You want a bass to sound like a bass. You don't want a bass to have 5 strings or 6 strings. You don't want it farting around the lower ends, you know, discombobulating your lower digestive system. And you don't need them twanging away with a horrible, high, thick, clean note that sounds like, you know, a Gibson Les Paul with no effects on it whatsoever. We don't want that. We want the bass to play the bass. You know what I'm saying? And I do respect a bass player that predominantly does that. I don't mind them stepping out and doing a bit of weirdness every now and then, but it's nice for them to be able to do the main job of being a bass player. Now, at number 9, I've got one of my favourite bands of all time, Living Colour. Now, I believe Living Colour should be one of the biggest bands in the world, and that their trajectory was that. First album comes out, it's amazing. Black musicians played heavy rock. How could they do this? I didn't know black people liked heavy rock. Well, they sort of invented it, if you think about it, people. You know, they did sort of, they always got on, they invented jazz. I don't know about that, you know, but they definitely played their part in invented heavy rock, especially the blues side of it. But you think of Jimi Hendrix as well and what he did to it, you know, give them their due, you know. And Living Colour came out, and whether they're black or white, it doesn't really matter. But the point is, they are one of the greatest hard, heavy rock, heavy metal bands of all time. We all know this. It was an incredible lineup, wasn't it? They did the first album. It was amazing. Then they brought the second album out, Time's Up. It's a masterpiece. It's incredible, right? And the chemistry, I saw them so many times. The chemistry between that band was incredible. And then bloody Muzz Skillings, who was a fantastic bass player, could play all the bloody notes. He left. Now, wallowing around in the sort of ether, somewhere way behind Living Colour, was another band called, see, I can't even remember their name now. I come to that. This is how much they impacted the public consciousness. Tackhead. Now, I love Tackhead, but they were a different thing. They really were one of those bands where every instrumentalist in it was trying to reinvent the wheel. And on bass, they had a very interesting bass player called Doug Winbush, and he was all over the place, you know. He had one of them whammy pedals, you know, the old whammy pedals, Digitech whammy pedal. Every time he pressed on it, it shot you up into the upper octave, where a bass player should never go. But he was up there all the bloody time. But he sort of worked in Tackett because the drums didn't sound like drums and the guitars sound, well, the guitars was Skip McDonald, was it? They were a great band, but they were really synthetic and they weren't Living Colour. Although they had rock riffs in, they weren't really a hard rocking band. So with the departure of Muzz Skillings, they go and get old Doug Winbush in, don't they? They bring this album out, Stained. Production's incredible on it. I went to see him live a couple of times. And with Living Colour, with old Vernon Reid, right, doing all that stuff on guitar, you know, all the noises and squeaks and pops and all that type of stuff, and then to have the bass player doing it at the same time and just have the drummer holding it together behind that. I went to see him live and it sounded like two people doing this really. Which I like. I can put up with that for a couple of, you know, few minutes. I'm one of those people. I don't mind a bit of abstract noise. But I just don't think they had anybody tying that band down. And what's interesting is Doug Winbush has now stuck in Living Colour ever since. And they've carried on. They're still going. They're still bringing albums out. Who cares? Right? This is a band that on their second album started to hit the charts. They was having hit singles with things like Love Rears Its Ugly Head. They were in the cultural consciousness, and as soon as Winbush is in, it's gone. And now they're sort of this fringe band. They're still going around. Whereas Buzzkids Skillings obviously went off to superstar, and I think I might be wrong. But my point here is, did Doug Wimbush take away the future of Living Colour as becoming, in the 90s, the most important heavy rock band of that era? Not bloody Rage Against the Machine and Pantera, great as they are. Their promise was curtailed, wasn't it? That's so often the case when we look at this list. But from now on, we're going to be talking about absolutely monstrous bands who were once king of the castles, right, until in they let some Dirty Rascal, and the Dirty Rascal spoiled that band at number 8. And these are contentious, right? These are contentious. This is the point of the video. This is why I like this idea of band members that ruined the band. That's a better title, actually, isn't it? New band members, 10 new band members that ruined the band. Does that sound better? At number 8, I've got the Red Hot Chili Peppers. The Red Hot Chili Peppers have ended up as a sort of, they're like they're almost like Jamiroquai now. They are an object of ridicule. Okay? And then when you throw in this thing that in his autobiography, he did admit to having an underage, relations, if you know what I'm saying. I've got underage relations, that people who relate to me that are underage, but I haven't had underage relations. That's the difference between had and got, and this is why the English language has to be specific. Forget these bloody postmodernists with their constructionist and deconstructionist view of the world. What does the word actually mean? What does truth actually mean? But anyway, you're not going to obfuscate, right, what they all claim, which is that the Red Hot Chili Peppers were ruined. Ruined by who? Dave Navarro. There they were. They came out with this weird mixture of surreal sort of yobbo-ish bravado, a pinch of funk, a pinch of punk, a pinch of hard rock, and it was a very entertaining stew, wasn't it? They were almost like a sort of white boy punk Parliament Funkadelic, and on the second album, Freaky Styley, when they get George Clinton in to produce it, he delivers. And that album's better than the first album. The first album's okay. Freaky Styley is really, really good. Uplift Both Out Party Plan, they hook up with the producer Michael Beenhorn, and he gets them to err a little more, a bit on the hard rock side, which I like. That's an incredible album. And then Hillel Slovak, their guitarist, who really is a force of nature within that band. He dies of a heroin overdose. And they get in John Frusciante. They do Mother's Milk, an incredible album. And then they do Blood Sugar Sex Magic, which is a masterpiece. It really is. Then Frusciante, he's now a heroin addict. And he goes off the rails, doesn't it? We all know the story. And he goes, and so they get old Dave Navarro in from Jane's Addiction. He comes in all handsome, short hair, nipples pierced, posed around. He's too rock. He hasn't got that liquid, funky jazziness, and he doesn't really fit in. But the album they make together, One Hot Minute, is absolutely incredible. Some people could argue that that's their high point. Some people could say when you start off with that first debut album that they actually walk all the way up to One Hot Minute. One Hot Minute, I think, is a brilliant album. It's after that they go crap. Right? No, they don't. They start writing all those middle of the road songs just because you don't like it. I know. Because into that mix I just mentioned, what comes in then? Bloody James Blunt or something. And before you know it, it's like, oh no, I know, would I cry the minute I know, I'm done it someday, and then I can't cry the minute. I'm not even singing the song. I started off, but now I've just realised once you get into that furrow, It's quite hard to get out of, to be honest. That sort of monotone, no vibrato, whinging about the fact that you decided to become a heroin addict, even though you're a bloody multi-millionaire and you got the bloody world before. Oh, it's so sad to go down under a bridge. It was really bad. I was under a bridge, I was, you know. Oh, I don't want to go down under the bridge again. Not down there. Why did you go down there? To get some heroin. Why? Because it's nice. I like it. I like the heroin. It's nice. That's why I went down there. But I've written a song about it. It'll make me a millionaire. How's it go? It goes like this. I don't even want to be under the bridge again. Don't take me down there, because I'll get some heroin. I don't like it that much, but it's nice when you inject it. It makes you feel all fluffy, but it's a really bad thing. Oh, yeah. Come on, take your clothes off, put your private parts in the socks, start jumping around and telling me about where you want to have parties. And you don't want to say down round my mum's in the garage. I want to know. Red Hot Chili Peppers. Who ruined it? Bloody Dave Navarro. No, it wasn't, because that album's good. It's John Frusciante. How can you say that? When John Frusciante comes in, he's bloody amazing. On Mother's Milk, he's amazing. You know, Michael Beanord's making him do proper guitar playing. He's all over the place. I thought he was an incredible guitarist when I heard that as a kid. I don't like it though, I just want to take heroin and do really bad twangy rock pentatonic solos and pretend I can't play. In fact, I've done them for so many years now, I don't think I can play. You know, but those first Frusciante comes in and gives the band a kick up the arse. But then when he goes back and then they realise that they aren't any good without him, we need John Frusciante, get him back in. Oh, but he's gone weird. He's living in a house. It's all messy. Johnny Depp goes around and films the mess. He said, you should be tidying up. I can't be arsed tidying it up because heroin's too nice. You know, you got all that going on. And heroin is not nice, children. It's horrible. If you take it, you'll go, oh, I don't like this, Andrew. It's a horrible thing.
Samo! You alright?
It's obviously not, isn't it? It's obviously really nice. I've never had it, you see. Anyone who has had the heroin, if you want to say how nice it is in the comments, you know, we can get a sort of more truthful take on this. And that's something you rarely get on you rarely get on YouTube, do you? Is that sort of, you know, tell us what you think of heroin in the comments. Frusciante. But he ruins it the second time he comes back. Once he's come out of that and lost all his teeth and all his tattoos have fallen off because of the bloody heroin use, and he comes back in and he goes, well, I'll come back in, but I'm not playing the guitar properly. I just want to play twangy guitar solos. That's all I want to do. It's all right. We just need you back, John. You've got the magic, you know. I don't know. And then when was that they did that? Like 25 years ago. Bloody hell. Red Hot Chili Peppers. You only need to buy up to One Hot a Minute, those people. That's the point. Living Colour, just need the first 2 albums. Stain's okay, just need the first 2 albums. Santana, get everything up to Amigos Festival maybe. Don't need any more than that. Red Hot Chili Peppers, just buy up to One Hot a Minute. And no band could we say that more so than Van Halen. Van Halen are the greatest rock band in existence, aren't they? Unbelievable. Everybody loves them. Everybody loves Van Halen, right? If you don't like Van Halen, it's because you're rubbish, right? It's because you're snotty, probably like Patti Smith. You're one of those types. But us real people that actually admit to what we actually like and don't just like things because it makes us look like clever and aloof, right? We love Van Halen. I love them. That first album is incredible. Van Halen 2, amazing. Women and Children First, amazing. Fair Warning, even more amazing. Then Diver Down, that's the rubbish one. No, it's not. Put it on and you will enjoy every single minute of it. You know, it's a little bit tiz-was, but I bloody love it. Then 1984, another sublime album. And then Roth goes. And they get in Sammy Hagar. Right, the Red Rocker.
Hey everyone, Sammy here.
Hagar. He's a great singer. He was great in Montrose, wasn't he? Space Station number 5 or 7 or whatever it was. Not that I really listen to much from Montrose, really. Not with all the British rock bands to listen to. But he's a good singer. But that's not what we want. We need swagger. We need joie de vivre. We need someone coming up with strange aphorisms that sound amazing, but we can't quite understand what they mean, but they're probably a bit rude.
There's no pot of gold for us at the end of the rainbow. We're just here to ride the rainbow. And you're invited, but it's like, it's my rainbow, baby. And we're just going to ride it till we're out of gas, and then we'll leave it. We'll come back a week later. Maybe somebody's living in the car.
That doesn't make sense.
And I've given this great consideration, and there's been a lot of temetry on my part when being involved with questions along this kind of line, and apropos of an answer towards this sort of an indigent philosophy, I would just invariably have to say, on behalf of Van Halen, and most particularly myself, you. The motto I always follow, which my daddy told me, was, Dave, it's not whether you win or lose, it's not how much money you made, it's not who you convinced of what, it's how good you looked.
That's what we want. We need Diamond Dave. He's the bloody antithesis. He is the yin to Eddie Van Halen's yang. Don't they understand this? It's like Dave Lee Roth has to be the lead singer of Van Halen. There's certain bands, they might have brilliant musicians in. Us Van Halen fans, we decamped out to David Lee Roth. I went and got Eat 'Em and Smile. Steve Vai wasn't Van Halen, but they were an incredible band, and that's where it all was for me. That unique blend of really creative, genius level rock making, coupled with someone who is a true entertainer in the sense of American vaudeville. This is an incredible thing. Hager's not got that. He's just a bloody red rocker, not a communist, like Reddy as in he's a bit ginger, Got her up to half an hour, and I'm only anyway. So Hagar ruined Van Halen, and then he went and they got in the bloke from Extreme. It's bloody over. And then right at the end, they go, "Come on, Dave, we'll do an album with you," and that doesn't cut it either because Hagar had ruined it forever and ever and ever. That's the point. Number whichever one this is, 7, Van Halen with Sammy Hagar joins. That's a classic example. That marks the point, and it's all to do with Hagar, right? Anybody that thinks that why can't this be love is better than Unchained, right? If you're going to argue that in the comments, well, go ahead and do it. I just don't know how to spell. That's the problem when you do that. Right, here we get more interested now. Number 6, one of the greatest bands of all time, Motorhead. Again, that first album's raw, punkish rock, rock and roll. It's punky rock and roll. Motorhead do what the Ramones supposed to do, but I don't get it from the Ramones, I get it from Motorhead. And all those albums, they just get better and better and better. Now, you in America might not quite get it, you'll know Motorhead. But in 1980-81, they come out with Ace of Spades. Ace of Spades goes in the charts. That album is like one of the greatest rock albums ever made, right? Then they do No Sleep Till Hammersmith. That goes to number 1. Then they team up with Girls' School and do this bloody "Don't you baby because I'm chicken so much." Oh, but I love it. It's one of the greatest things they ever did. When they hooked up with Girls' School, it was amazing. Right, and then they do Iron Fist. I love Iron Fist, 1982. Devil Fist, the Iron Fist. Absolutely amazing. Iron Fist is one of my favourite Motorhead albums. They haven't put a foot wrong. Why did Fast Eddie Clarke leave? I don't know actually why he did leave. Maybe it was all a bit too much for him being in Motorhead. But was he the perfect guitarist? I don't know whether he was. How was he put into that band really? It's got to be something. I mean, we know Filthy Animal Taylor. That was like, that was such an important input into that band. And then of course Lemmy is Motorhead. We know all that. Fast Eddie Clarke, was he really playing such a major part in the Motorhead sound? Now, when they go, they bring in a guitarist who is perhaps a better guitarist than Fast Eddie Clarke, with Brian Robertson. Now, Brian Robertson had been the curly-headed, alcoholic sort of genius in Thin Lizzy, and he drunk a little bit too much. He was always having to bloody, be replaced by Gary Moore every now and then, who's an amazing guitarist. But when he crops up in Motorhead in 1983 for the album, what was it called? Jesus Christ, I was just thinking about this. I knew exactly. A Perfect Day, is it? Can't see. I every time I get in front of the camera now, I'm getting all tongue-tied. That's your job, Andy, is to not be tongue-tied in front of a camera. If you've got worries about things, write them down in note form when you have done that. But anyway, the reason why I can't really remember that album, and it's actually a very good album. The Brian Robertson album by Motorhead is actually very good. But he'd had his hair cut short, and he looked like bloody Shakin' Stevens, and none of it made sense. It was like when Graham Bonnet joined Ramo, you know, more of that in a little while. No, Brian Robertson came in, upset the apple cart. He goes. Then they start to bring all sorts of people in. And Phil Campbell, who recently died, you know, was in it, and Motorhead eventually settle into being a 4-piece, and they make some great records, but nobody cares. Nobody cares about those records. You know, that track about the first wheel in 1916 or whatever he did. Nobody cares. I'm sorry, Lemmy. You upset the apple cart. Filthy Animal Taylor, he then goes. I think he's off his bloody head, wasn't he? Maybe, I mean, I got the feeling that Fast Eddie left because the other two were a bit off there, and I don't know. It's such a shame. Motorhead should really be like AC/DC. They should be like... I mean, I know people know them, but I don't think people really truly realise how great they are. And more than any band, maybe AC/DC as well, but they embody what rock music is. I love Motorhead. Anyway, number 5, we move to Metallica. Now, Metallica are a much maligned band. And I'm going to have to have a caveat here, because I'm going to do the sort of cliched assessment of Metallica. Is they come out with Kill 'Em All, very raw, but they have taken the new wave of British heavy metal and they've advanced it. They pushed it to an even faster, harder, heavier place, as have a few other thrash metal bands. But Metallica have something else up their sleeve that the other thrash metal bands don't have so much. You know what it is? Songwriting. They can write songs. They then do Ride the Lightning, which is a brilliant album. Then they do Master of Puppets, and Master of Puppets is one of the greatest rock albums, if not one of the greatest albums of the 20th century. It doesn't put a foot wrong. It's unbelievable. For kids looking for that aggressive, sped up, you know, but not too screamy. I mean, that album was so far out when it came out. Now it just sounds like standard heavy metal, and everyone's listening to that bit. You know, do you know that? Shall I do that again? The metal that sounds like that, and it's all right for a while, I suppose. Right, I come in at that point. Ride the Lightning. Got that album. I heard the first album on the Friday Rock Show. What the hell's this band? Sounds amazing. Got Ride the Lightning, taped it off someone. Bought not Among the Living, because I was a big Anthrax fan. Sorry, Freudian slip. Bought Master of Puppets, absolutely amazing. Cliff Burton, they come over on tour. My mate meets them. My mate Matt meets them in a pub back in 1986. He rings me up, Andy, do you want to come over? I'm having a drink with Metallica. No, I can't be arsed. I was going to have a bath. I can't remember what I said. The Cliff Burton era as well. It's one of my biggest regrets is not going to meeting them at that point. Cliff Burton dies a few weeks later after that meetup would have happened. And the band is thrown into what... How can you imagine you get over that? Because Cliff Burton was really, perhaps of all the musicians in that band, the most iconic. Now, they go and get Jason Newsted, and when I saw Jason Newsted with his long hair but shaved at the sides, that haircut, I knew that haircut from when I was at college.
That's right, I'm quite a fan of MMA, despite them putting Trump in my face every 5 seconds as they complain about the left bringing politics into everything.
What kind of work you do?
I'm a barista.
A barista?
Yes.
What's a barista?
I make coffee for people in bookstores.
Amazing.
And what did that mean? That meant that you weren't convicted enough to grow your hair long properly. And the troublesome parts here, you weren't going to deal with. You have to, if you're going to grow your hair long, these parts have to be long. Don't try and fashion it into something you can tie back and look like you got short hair, right? There's nothing. I'm not going to say these people are twats who do that shave the sides. That they're not. They're perfectly okay. but they're not leaders. There's never been a famous world leader with that haircut, ever. Right, the only person to get away with it was Annabelle Wynne from Bow Wow Wow. Anybody else, I don't trust it. And so Jason Newsted, I thought, you just look like you're a average bass player from an average metal band. You can't come in and replace the great Cliff Burton, but they're on a roll. And they go in and make this double album. Now, we should all be sat here saying that Justice for All is the peak of heavy metal. It is monumental. What is it that makes it not like Master of Puppets? Well, it's the production and the sound. Okay? What is it about the sound? Is it not somewhere down the bass end? What do you think? Maybe Jason Newsted was doing too much what he was told. Maybe Cliff Burton had been one of these guys fighting for the bass to have its role. If you think of a lot of the great rock bands, like say if you take Iron Maiden, Steve Harris's bass lines are like, if you were to take that out, say in 1982, and replace it with something else, we probably wouldn't be talking about Iron Maiden now. They would have been another band that was ruined by another bass player coming in. Now, Jason Newsted flaps around for an album or so, and then he goes, and then they get that Trilio bloke in, don't they? And he's a fantastic bass player. He looks a little bit Native American. He's got and he's great. But then they go into a period that I really respect them for, experimental Metallica. Very few bands at this point in their careers would have gone for this. But they do. They go all experimental, and it's great. More recently, they've returned back to the classic Metallica sound. But for me, Jason Newsted upset the apple cart. He wasn't able to come in like some musicians can and make his place known in that band. And from then on, whatever magic Metallica had was never quite there. I think that's right, even though this video is a bit of a joke, I think that's actually right. Right, number four, because these last four are massive things here. We're going to do, this is actually, as I get into this is actually better than I thought it was when I first sat down. Which is actually quite interesting, actually, the things it's bringing up. Number 4, Black Sabbath. Invented heavy metal, invented a whole bunch of other things as well. And Black Sabbath are an example of a band like U2 or Led Zeppelin or Rush, where that's the band, right? That's the band. Geezer Butler, Bill Ward, Tony Iommi, Ozzy Osbourne. And they're all embody Black Sabbath. At the weekend, I saw a news story that was going around that Geezer Butler has gone out and rescued something like 2,000 beagles. That's the sort of thing Black Sabbath does. They rescue beagles. That's what Geezer Butler does. I don't know what he rescued them from or any context to this story. Right, I imagine it is some sort of kidnap situation, maybe in the Amazon forest, and there's a house made out of palm fronds and bamboo sticks, and inside is some foreign people that are obviously a bit dodgy, with 2,000 beagles who they are working to death in some sort of Marxist slave camp. There the beagles are having to go out and build a bridge every day and come out, and then the one beagle actually starts to get in it. He organises it, and when it comes to blow up the bridge, that beagle, oh no, that's bridge over the River Kwai. So yeah, forget that. So they're just incarcerated in it. And then I imagine coming through the forest, like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Predator, not later on when he's fighting the alien, earlier on when he does the same thing, he rescues those people from it. And there he comes, Geezer Butler, through the forest, the only fit one in Black Sabbath because he's been a vegan, right? And he hasn't, I know that Geezer is like me. He's the worrier. He's the big worrier. in that band. Ozzy's not a worrier. Tony Iommi's too handsome and devil may care, you know, and he's got a bit of that Italian bravado that he got from his dad when his dad's going around selling ice creams. And Bill Ward is just off his head, isn't he, basically, you know, just enjoying being pissed out of his head. And he's you know, moved away from that lifestyle. But obviously, when we saw him on the final concert and Bill Ward took his shirt on and he looked like some century-old wax candle in the Catholic Church where it all dripped down and all the flesh-covered wax had come and run down. He looked terrible. But Geezer looks amazing. He hasn't tried to look young. I've got a lot of respect for Geezer. But the thought of him coming through the forest, machine gun in hand, you know, black stuff smudged all over his faces, and then suddenly, grenade, and he goes, get the beagles, get the bloody beagles, you, get in there, bloody hell, get them all out, bang them up and get them in the back of the van, I ain't having them bloody doing nasty things to beagles, not on my watch. You know, all of that is the case. That's what Black Sabbath are. There is something about Black Sabbath which is about them. And we know Ozzy had it in buckets. So when Ozzy left, they got Ronnie James Dio in. He was a better singer. They made an amazing album, Heaven and Hell. Then they did Mob Rules. I loved Mob Rules. That was their sort of new wave of British heavy metal thing. And then they went and did Live Evil, didn't they? And then I think Ronnie James Dio left then to form Dio, another great rock band, another great album. But that period, which we thought was quite good back then, because the music was good. The music was good with Dio. It just wasn't Black Sabbath. When Live Evil comes out, didn't Ozzy come out with, like, was it Shout at the Devil? I listened to that the other day. That's Black Sabbath. That is Black Sabbath. But you put it on and go, yeah, I'm listening to Black Sabbath now. So I think Ronnie James Dio ruined Black Sabbath. And I think they shouldn't have called it Black Sabbath. And I believe they were going to call it Heaven and Hell. And I think when he came back and they did call it Heaven and Hell. Should it be called Heaven and Hell? If it was called Heaven and Hell, I might be here saying that this is an incredible rock album, one of the greatest rock albums of all time. But I'm not, because Ronnie James Dio coming in ruined Black Sabbath. It ruined it all. That's what I think. Anyway, at number 4. Number 3, this gets really contentious now. Number 3, Brian Johnson in AC/DC. Brian Johnson ruined AC/DC. I hate to say it because I love Brian Johnson. He comes from, you know, Newcastle. Why they're going to come from Newcastle? Why? You know, you don't want to knock anyone coming from Newcastle. Incredible singer, you know, credible voice. But the truth is, every Bon Scott era AC/DC album is one of my favourite albums. Dirty Deeds done dirt shit I'm not so keen on, but all the rest are brilliant. Even the early ones, even the patchy early ones I love. But I would say Let There Be Rock, Power Age, Highway to Hell, the live album If You Want Blood, and did I say how? Power Age, I said. Right, those albums are like sublime. They're like flawless. As is Back in Black. I hear you shout it. Surely Back in Black's one of their finest moments. It is. Hiring Brian Johnson to finish off the last Bon Scott album, having him step in to deliver that album where the soul of Bon Scott was still in it. It's incredible. And it shows you what Bon Scott does. It was so strong that it could be delivered by another singer, Brian Johnson. But by the time they get to the album after that, For Those About to Rock, an album that up until recently I would have said it was really good, Stevie, it's good at Back in Black. No, it's not. It really is not. The track For Those About to Rock is, right? And at the time when that came out, we all wanted to love it. We bought it, we loved it, we listened to it. We never bought another AC/DC album after that. Brian Johnson ruined AC/DC. That's the bottom line. They were able to keep going. A new audience came in when they did that sort of MTV era. Who's, you know, and I was going to say Who's Zooming Who, but that's Aretha Franklin, you know. Thunderstruck, thunder, you know, all that bit. Yeah, it's not AC/DC, is it? It's not AC/DC. Now, what's the alternative? Probably just call it a day. Yeah, probably. Probably, scrap the AC/DC name, and then come back and work with Brian Johnson, so he's not just there as a foil to step in and try and be Bon Scott, which is what he had to do, and he couldn't do it. Maybe there would have been a few more albums that were different, but that they had more. There was more interest there for us AC/DC fans. I don't know. Right, moving on to number 2 now, because we've got 15 minutes left on me. I don't go over an hour now. Why don't you go over an hour, Andy? Because these new cameras I've got, they won't do more than an hour. So I keep it to an hour. Most YouTubers in this game, if they were doing a top 10, they'd have been over after 10, 15 minutes. Not me. I go on for bloody ages and ages. I don't mean to. This is the natural way it is for me. Right, that's the way I work, In terms of music YouTube, I'm much closer to, say, Kubrick than the other people who do it. We were much closer to, say, I don't know, a Farrelly Brothers comedy. You know what I'm saying? I'm more like Kubrick. I don't want that to sound like I'm blowing sunshine up my own arse. I don't mean it like that. I do really. So at number 2, I got 2 bands, both ruined by the same bloke. Who's that bloke, you ask? Richie Blackmore.
I don't even know why I started talking about that.
Because I asked you about.
Okay.
I mean,
it's a long story that I forget all the little parts of it.
Maybe you can just condense it and just tell me that there were times that when you almost got to blows because of how much tension there was.
There was a lot of tension. When we got to blows, I'd have to think about that.
Okay.
Next.
What did you see as the high point of your early career with Purple? Was there a particular moment when you just felt that sense of I've arrived?
Absolutely not.
What do you mean? What bands has he ruined? The only 2 bands he's ever bloody done. Richie Blackmore he ruined Deep Purple, then he ruined Rainbow. Oh, this was what gave me the idea for this video, was this one here. This one gave me the idea. Because the thing with Richie Blackmore is, right, he seems to be a cantankerous, antisocial, egomaniacal, right, and yet not being able to actually stand up and be counted type of character. He might be a guitar genius, he might have been there right at the beginning of it, up in the, above that shop, doing all those incredible records with the bloke who ended up shooting his landlady, that one? What are you talking about, Andy? And he was in the Outlaws as well, wasn't he? He's incredible. Then he forms Deep Purple. Now the truth is, Deep Purple flap around making some sort of like jammy, organ heavy, psychedelic rock for 3 albums. Do any Deep Purple people, does any Deep Purple fans here really listen to those first 3 albums? There's some things like Wring That Neck and Mandrake Roots, they were staples for them live. But for me, it's the live versions of those tracks that where I love them. When Ian Gillan comes in. When Gillan comes in, and then they do that sort of live with the symphony orchestra thing. I love that. They become Deep Purple when Ian Gillan comes in. So when they get rid of the other bloke, and then they brought Gillan in, Gillan didn't make it worse. He made Deep Purple into Deep Purple. Ian Gillan did. It was Ian Gillan. You can say Roger Glover to something, but it was Ian Gillan, as far as I'm concerned. Right? And then they start making their classic albums. Made in Japan, In Rock, Machine Head, Fireball. They're all classic albums, right? But you feel that Blackmore is never bloody happy, and he's got to take something, right? He's like my dad. My dad would make something, it would be amazing, but once he'd made it, he'd have to tinker with it. He'd tinker and fiddle with it until he got himself into a right bloody position that was he didn't want to get into. I can remember him coming around to sort my electrics out once, and he fiddled and fiddled. He was halfway there, but he kept going back and going in, and eventually we couldn't get the electrics on. And so we had to ring up an emergency. I don't know, we just had the baby back then, so we needed electricity. So my dad offered to pay for this emergency electrician coming. He charged 150 quid just to turn up. That was his turning up fee. And when he walked in, he just walked up to the thing and just switched the electricity on. My dad, when he'd been working, had switched it off, got into a panic, and then forgot just to switch the electricity back on. What he'd done was correct, but he was fiddling with it. He was overthinking with it. It's always a danger to overthink. And I think Blackmore's a bit like that. And so he overthinks in terms of the musicians around him. Let's actually tell the tale so you can see what I'm saying. So you got to imagine Richie Blackmore, all grumpy, right? Fey and grumpy, walking around, pilgrim's hat on, dressed in black, thinking he's some sort of 1970s Johnny Cash, but he hasn't got a strong enough chin. You know, he's somewhere for me between Phil Spector and Johnny Cash, older Richie Blackmore's, you know. They get in Ian Gillan. Ian Gillan turns Deep Purple into Deep Purple. He does. So what does he do? He starts alienating Ian Gillan. Why the hell would Ian Gillan leave Deep Purple in 1973, 3 years after joining it and making it Deep Purple? Why? Because of Richie Blackmore. Oh, I don't know about Ian Gillan. I don't know about Ian Gillan. Let's get somebody else in. So they get rid of him just to please him. And who do they get in? Coverdale, another incredible singer, Glenn Hughes. Absolutely amazing, right? The band that they do that Burn album, amazing. Oh, it's a bit too funky for my liking, but I won't do anything about it. I'm just going to flounce, see if I can get my own way. And when not getting his own way, he's then like someone who's got no sort of allegiance to anybody. He has a roving eye, doesn't he? And they have this band Elf come in. Oh, I quite like them. Oh, I'd rather be playing with Elf than Deep Purple. I'll tell you what, I'm going to leave and join Elf. So he joins Elf. Elf, that band's over now because Richie Blackmore's got involved. Don't worry, chaps, we'll call it Richie Blackmore's Rainbow. It's still Elf, but we'll call it, you know, and they do a first album. It's great. Oh, I'm not too sure about this. Now, this is the one thing he does that's right. He was right to sack all of Elf, even though it was immoral. He sacks them all, keeps Ronnie James Dio. Can you imagine being in Elf at that point? Going back home, what should we do now? Oh, we'll be all right, we'll carry on, you know. Maybe the fame we had with Rainbow will rub off. No, it won't, chaps, not at all, because it was Ron James Dio. That was the only good thing you had, that's just the way it is. So he then puts, and this is what really niggles me with Richie Blackmore, he then puts together one of the greatest rock bands ever in the history of rock. Him on guitar, Blackmore, Cozy Powell on drums, genius. Jimmy Bain on bass, amazing, rock solid. And the incredible Tony Carey on keyboards. Tony Carey is not your John Lord. He ain't going to sit there with some, you know, dodgy, distorted organ sound, you know, chuffing away with his arpeggios. Now, this is something else. This is like psychedelic, bloody otherworldly stuff going on. Tony Carey and Ronnie James Dio, those two together pull off this sword and sorcery madness that should make this album one of the funniest albums ever, you know, but you don't because you believe it. Rainbow Rising is unbelievable. That band's amazing. Leave it alone, Richie. Leave it alone. But he can't. So he chucks them out, and before you know, Tony Carey's gone, and then Jimmy Bain's gone. They get somebody else in. Was it Dave Stone on keyboards? He's a really good keyboards, but he's more in the style. And I know what it is that I sometimes think that Tony Carey, his input on that album, because when I was a kid and I got Rainbow Rising and I put it on, and I was flirting with prog, and I liked the grandiosity of prog and of heavy metal. I put it on, and Taro Woman comes in, and that keyboard flourishy thing starts, and I was won over just with that. I really was. And then at the end of the album, when you get to side 2, and it's almost like one track, Stargazer, Light in the Black is all one track. And the peak is Tony Carey's keyboard playing. Tony Carey, why would you get rid of him and get David Stone in? But then, that's not good enough for Blackmore, is it? He has to sack bloody Ronnie James Dio. Go on, you sling you up, go and ruin Black Sabbath. The ruination that Blackmore has wrought, because he actually manages to, it's like being in bloody playing pool and hitting them and you get two in at the same time. Not only does it ruin Rainbow, but it ruins bloody Black Sabbath as well. He goes to get Graham Bonnet, amazing singer. And they attempt to become some sort of, you know, sword and sorcery foreigner. That's what he wants to be next. Okay, and Down to Earth, I love that album. I love all the Rainbow albums, up to Straight Between the Eyes. I love them all. I'm not going to knock them. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for All Night Long and, you know, the songs that Graham Bonnet did. I wouldn't be here. But he just fiddles. Richie Blackmore, in his career, has done this. Formed Deep Purple. They got Gillan in. They were amazing. Buggered it up. Got Coverdale in. They could have made it amazing, but he buggers it up because he then leaves. They go and get Tommy Bolin. Tommy Bolin is better than Blackmore. He fits in perfect, but no one gives a toss now, right? He goes and forms Rainbow. Rainbow could have been the greatest rock band in the 1970s. They could have produced album after album, and we could be talking about them like we talk about Led Zeppelin or Iron Maiden. But no, he had to fiddle with it, and then he was crap. And then why did he stop Rainbow? Because he decided to go back and form Deep Purple. They did that album, Perfect Stranger. That's a good album. Deep Purple has suddenly come back. We were all with you, right? And then Gillan goes, and then Blackmore goes, and now you've got what did Ian Gillan go to do? To go and join the already ruined Black Sabbath. But anyway, last week Deep Purple brought out their new single Arrogant Boy. What do I think of it? There's no Blackmore there. If Blackmore was there, I'd think something different about it, but he's not, is he? What do I think about it? I think it sounds like Deep Purple. Right, number one, top of the list, I've got Kenny Jones, the incredible drummer from the Small Faces, a brilliant drummer, one of my favourite drummers. He's incredible in the Small Faces, but he absolutely ruined the Who.
I was a little bit more busier than I should have been because my comfort zone is playing a lot straighter than I should. But I said I'm not going to copy Keith, and I never did. So I was a lot tighter. So probably Roger was missing certain key moments, drum fills and stuff like that, and bits and pieces like that. And then suddenly looked around, expecting to see Keith, and it was me.
The Who were really good when Keith Moon was in the band. Now, I believe, and this is why it's a classic example, why it's at number one, is that they just made the wrong choice. Okay? Eventually, they got Zach Starkey in, and Zach Starkey was there for decades until, you know, an aged and probably egomaniacal Roger Daltrey decided to blame, you know, Zach Starkey for him not being able to sing. But I have to be honest, then Barry Robinson, over at Classic Album Review, he interviewed Zach Starkey, and he came out across as a complete twat. You know, the product of privilege, too much money and too much substances up the nose. Absolutely terrible. The music industry stinks. I don't even want to talk about the Who, but that's why I got a number one. I feel like I've done enough, really. We've only got 2 minutes to go, so I've said my piece. So that's the end of the video, everybody. I have delivered what I said. You've had your top 10. Hope you've had some laughs up on the way. I hope maybe I've said a couple of things that's made you think, maybe see the band a little bit differently. Maybe I've inspired you to go up and listen to some albums you haven't heard for a while, you know, and, you know, keep, you know, turning the wheel of music, you know, because when people stop listening, there is no more music. That was quite profound. And he always ends with a profound thing at the end of his... I do, I'm a very profound man, you know. This is why I'm the Stanley Kubrick and not the Ferrelli brothers of music YouTubing. You know, who's the Ferrelli brothers? It's that bloody prog corner, isn't it? You know, the hobo looking one with the white teeth. You know him. Scott dude looks like a lady. Anyway, I'm not going to put any other ones down. Just Scott. If you like this video, like. If you want to see some more, subscribe. If you want to become a member here, you can. I've got members. I get to see things that you don't. If you want to see other things that you don't, then become a patron. The patron one is the best one to join, to be honest. I wish you'd all become patrons. Patron's amazing. I've got so much stuff there. You will not believe it. It will be like...
Hello.